Hello and welcome back to another episode of Creator Codes. My name is Cassandra. I am your host, and I'm really excited for this episode today because this is literally what gets me excited about life. And when actually, this is one of the biggest questions I get is like, what does this mean if I see this all the time or I saw that? Angel numbers and all of these things. And so we're going to get into it today and talk about symbology and talk about the way that works. And a lot of people think that, the universe is sending them messages, which in a way is true because you are the universe in human form. But really, as far as my experience and what I've learned and just, like the way that this journey has unfolded, as I've realized that when we see certain symbols, synchronicities, and signs, it's actually our higher self. It's really our subconscious mind that's creating it. And it's really interesting because I may have talked about this before on the podcast, but I used to see my ex's initials all the time for about a whole entire year after we broke up. And so at first it was kind of like, oh my God, what does this mean? He's just like wanting to be in my life. Maybe I want to be in his life, that kind of thing. Where when you see these initials, literally, I'm not even kidding you, every single day. Every single day. I didn't miss a day. There was no days that I missed where I didn't see my ex's initials. And so this is something that is really powerful to talk about because a lot of times we become just the reaction. Like we forget that this is Creator Codes. Reminder, this is the podcast you're listening to. And so we forget that we are the creators of our reality. What does that mean? Even the signs, the symbols, the synchronicities, our higher self has put into place. So why the hell would my ex's initials continue to show up when I knew like we were not meant to be together? And it was like a really big lesson about intuition for me when I didn't leave him. And finally I did. And then everything in my life opened up. As far as my business and just my life, it just felt like I was on a different wavelength because finally I came to terms with what my intuition was telling me this entire time was, Cassie, you need to leave him. Leave him. It's not right. There's something different that you are really meant for when it comes to a relationship. And so, of course, it's really hard to feel attached to someone and leave them and like simultaneously leave them while you're feeling attached, but you know that it's not a healthy attachment. Like my intuition was really like, it became a scream after a while. And a big sign, speaking of signs, right, was every holiday, every anniversary, it was like my body and my mind were just angry and just frustrated, and like it didn't matter what he did. I was just so like upset with him. It was really weird, And so anyways, leading up to the point where I finally left him, and then for a whole year after, his initials were showing up on license plates. And so what does this mean? Why, like, how does this happen? Because, okay, a lot of people will see that and be like, oh, that's a sign that my ex still loves me, or I need to be with my ex, or I don't know. There's these stories that we create from these symbols that our consciousness literally puts there. So why did my consciousness put it there? Why did my higher self and my subconscious mind project these initials every day? I'll give you a guess. I'll let you guess here for a moment. Why do you think? Well, I kind of said it in the question, because he's in my subconscious. It's kind of like, God, I don't want to compare it to trauma, because that's not how the relationship was at all. Like it just wasn't right. But it wasn't traumatic. It might have, okay, we don't need to get into the definitions of trauma, but anyways, it's kind of like when trauma lives in the body, it's playing out literally unconsciously. You don't realize you're making decisions based on the fears, based on the trauma, right? And so that's kind of what my subconscious was projecting into my reality was there's still some healing to do. There's still some like work to do in this area when it comes to like what actually was off in that relationship. And it's interesting because right when we broke up, I was feeling like $1,000,000. Okay. I was the one that broke it off with him. This has been a long time coming. I got a new apartment. I started a new life. I started to blow up on TikTok and Instagram with my tarot readings. Like I was living a whole new life. And then I also had these men that came into my reality immediately. And it was the way that I kind of attached to them. And that's, I mean, words are very limiting, but I focused on them, right? It's like, you know, when you have a crush and you're just like, oh my God, they're all I can think about. It was kind of that. And it was like 3 phases of men, 3 different men that came into my life. And it wasn't that I got into any kind of serious relationship, but there was this like fantasization that I got caught up with. And so that's why his initials were consistently showing up in my reality, because there was stuff I had yet to deal with. And I was just jumping into like, even though I wasn't jumping into a relationship, I was jumping into the mindset of like fantasizing and like someone coming to save me and someone sweeping me off my feet and like all of these things that I never actually dealt with when it came to Joe and I breaking up. And like those 4+, it's like 4 to 5 years we were together. That's a long time. Especially it started right at my Saturn return. And if you're not aware, Saturn return, it's like our sun returns every year. And so that's how many years old we are. But your Saturn return is every 29, 30 years. And that is pivotal in a lot of people's lives, because this is where you kind of like are forced to look at what's not working, what is working in your life. And that's when I had my biggest spiritual awakening. If you haven't listened to that episode, then I definitely recommend the Spiritual Awakening Dark Night of the Soul episode, where I go into that. And that was right at that time when we started dating, interestingly enough. So it was a pattern that started even before I got into a relationship with Joe, where I got into the relationship with Joe not from this place of radical wholeness, but from a place of, you know, kind of like might as well, like this works. He's like on the outside, it was perfect, right? People loved us as a couple when we lived down in Florida. He was the cook in the back of the restaurant. I was the server. I didn't realize I was going to be like going into this restaurant, this relationship for this episode, but it's a really perfect, I guess, symbol for what I'm talking about here when it comes to these signs, symbols, synchronicities that happen in our lives for us. And so, yeah, getting into this relationship at my Saturn return, at the dark night of my soul, when I was kind of just awakening, it, like, when I reflect back on it, it was like, wow, I was just finding myself. And so instead of like diving into myself and really allowing this integration of this Saturn return type of energy, this dark night of the soul, this spiritual awakening to really integrate, I just kind of attached to this guy. And then every time we hung out, we drank alcohol, a lot of Stella Artois. Like, that was our drink. And it was just a pattern that I got into with him was, you know, again, like, this is not about my relationship, but this is just kind of like the background of why there have been certain signs, symbols, synchronicities that have come through my reality, in particular, seeing his initials for so long after we broke up. It was because I really didn't deal with what was actually going on as far as my insecurity is the word that's coming through. My insecurity within that relationship, because in that relationship, it actually brought out my control, like the toxic masculine. My toxic masculine was brought out in that relationship because of my insecurities and my lack of integration as far as what my soul really wanted for me before and during that relationship. And so it took a while because, again, for like a whole year after we broke up, my goodness, that's a long time. That's a long time. And I still think about him, but I don't have that attachment anymore. But there's still, as we know, like the lessons continue to unfold over time. They continue to deepen, right? And so I know for a fact that when I get into my next relationship, that's going to help me kind of tie up some loose ends. And again, it's not like it's a process that ever ends. There's always layers that go deeper, but there's going to be certain things that come up in the relationship that I maybe wasn't aware of or didn't see just on my own. But I needed this time alone. And that is just kind of the main message as far as like seeing his initials. A lot of times we think, oh my God, the initials of my ex are coming up, so that means I need to be with him. In fact, it was the opposite for me. It was like, how can you feel okay being alone? How can you integrate everything, even before this relationship started, that your soul was yearning for you to just see and witness and feel in yourself? So it's just really interesting. So that is one really big kind of long-winded example of a symbol that has happened in my life that shook me for a little while because I wasn't really aware of what that meant. And I was very attached to him. So it messed with my mind a little bit, which is interesting because my mind was projecting that out into reality. So we literally mess with ourselves here on planet Earth. It's just such a wild time to be alive and to be in Earth School. But we are the creators of our reality, period. So if you're consistently seeing a certain sign, symbol, synchronicity, what is it telling you? And only you could know, or, maybe a mentor, or, when I work with my clients, we talk about dreams and we talk about decoding life as a dream. I even have that in my Instagram bio, is like decoding life as a dream is just something that I am very passionate about because we are living in a simulation. We are living in a dream. So when we see these signs and symbols, it's our mind giving us what we are unconsciously, subconsciously focusing on, something we need to process still. So that is a sign for you. If you're seeing your ex's initials, that does not mean you need to get back with them. There's some part of you that wants to integrate what happened during that relationship, before that relationship, or just in terms of like maybe just certain shadows that you haven't necessarily looked at. And that's basically why I love looking at life as a dream, because when you decode a dream, each person, each color, each number, each situation in the dream represents something in your own mind that you are holding. That is, I'm seeing the moon card in tarot. That's deeper down. That's not the sun, where it's just like out in the open. So when you look at life as a dream, you can start to really see strangers coming into your life saying something that maybe it triggers you in a good way, bad way, whatever it is. Maybe it triggers you into like, wait, like it just makes you stop for a second. And the more that we're really aware and really present in the moment, the more that you'll see your life unfolding as a dream. And all of these signs, symbols, synchronicities, they all mean something. It's crazy because life is meaningless. We bring the meaning to it. So what meaning are you bringing to your reality, to these signs? If you're seeing 222 all the time, like, how are you feeling when you see that number? What are you thinking about? And I go over all of the different angel numbers in Tarot Intuition Mastery, where we really go deep into like, yes, they can mean this. For example, 222, that's kind of like a dualistic type of number. So it can mean, like black and white, left or right, up or down, yes or no. It can mean two different people, a relationship, right? A partnership, a union of some sort. Or it can mean like division of some sort, right? There's two. So the more that you just become aware of yourself in your reality, the more that you can decode these things without immediately feeling like you need to hop on Google and be like, what does 222 mean? Because I will tell you right now, usually it's not what Google says. Yes, it could be a sign from Google, right? Like when you really get into it, like nothing is really an accident or it's all a projection, right? But I really recommend that you don't immediately hop on Google and look up what a hawk means in a dream or what seeing bees all the time mean, or it's like just take a moment and sit with yourself. This is how I train my students on developing their intuition. Is what signs, what symbols, what synchronicities are you continuously seeing? Or not even continuously, what's popping up in your reality? Just an example for me, like ants, the little critters, the little insects, ants have been coming up a lot lately. Okay? And that's just like, it can mean a lot. And it's interesting because I pulled the ant card in my oracle deck yesterday and I'm like, wow, that's weird. But like it's not, because there's clearly a message here. My brother's name is Anthony. I call him Ant. He has some like medical stuff he's dealing with right now, and that's been on my mind, right? And so like that could be a projection of what I've been unconsciously just like holding. Of course, I always see angel numbers, and what else? I do always pay attention to license plates, especially in Sedona. It's really interesting. A lot of people's license plates have little words or sayings, or like one love, or I just saw one that said weave for you. And it just reminded me of like a spider weaving its web. And so do you see how my mind immediately went to something like that's your intuition? You know, we don't have to look up what these words or symbols mean in order to understand what it means for us, because we are the creators of our reality. And so as always, I'm always pointing everyone back to themselves of, okay, like how are you creating this sign or symbol? How are you creating this? And not even how, but like why? Like what's underneath that? What's the message for you? What's the message that you know? Like you literally are holding it in your body, in your subconscious. So you are the one that actually has access to this. So I recommend you write down your dreams and start there. And the more that you decode your dreams and really look at those, the more that you'll be able to do this in your life, because it just becomes second nature to you, of noticing the person was wearing a hat and it looked like this. They made me feel this way. I was projecting this onto them, or they were seemingly projecting onto me. I'll give you an example. Last night I actually had a dream, and the one thing that I remember when I woke up was, what if you didn't know you were you? Like, what if you actually lost your identity? Like you showed up in the world, but like you didn't know that you were you. I don't know if this is resonating or hitting. I feel like it is with someone. And that was so profound, because in the dream I remember, gosh, I don't remember the details, but it felt like I was experiencing life in a more free way when I didn't have the attachment of who I was, who I've become in my life, who Cassandra is, who she is as a leader, a teacher, what she wears. It's like none of it mattered. None of it mattered. And so I just thought that was really cool. I always have so many signs come through for my dreams, especially because I've set that intention of writing my dreams down, of taking note of them, of like really thinking about them and contemplating them. And when you do, the more that you do that, your higher self is like, okay, they're paying attention. Let's give a little more juice here. Let's do a little something different here. And that's when life becomes like a lucid dream, because you're so in tune with your dreams. When you're awake, you're going to experience life like a dream. And that's why I love decoding everything. That's why I love tarot cards and oracle cards, because they're little cards with all these symbols on them. And that's what I teach again in like Tarot Intuition Mastery, is I don't necessarily, yes, I teach what all of the cards mean, like black and white style of like, okay, this is, you know, the Four of Wands is commitment, and it's the 1111 card, and it's a celebration. It could be marriage, right? There's like these actual meanings that, in general, these cards mean. But what I love to teach is how you can actually decode messages through tarot and oracle cards just with your own intuition. You don't need to really know the exact definition to be a tarot reader. And I know that, I don't know, maybe that will ruffle some feathers. Maybe people will be like, no, what do you mean? And of course, you want to, if you listen to people who read cards or, book a reading with someone, you want them to know what these things mean. But I think it's more powerful when someone is more connected with intuition and there's a message that's coming through that, I don't know, maybe no other tarot reader would ever say about pulling the Four of Wands, because that's what the intuitive hit is giving. And that's more personalized. Because if we're just sitting there and reading the cards as we know, knowledge, brain, that's very logical. And logic and intuition do go hand in hand. The more that you kind of know about astrology and about numbers and like these really fun things I also talk about in Tarot Intuition Mastery, the more that your brain and your consciousness is able to pull from that information that you've learned. So for example, maybe someone's like Sagittarius is coming through with the Four of Wands, because that's actually a fire sign. The Wands energy is fire. So like that's just, for some reason, that's coming through. And that's what I do. And you guys know, and you watch my readings, there's certain times where I'll be like, I talked about buying jeans the other day, but I'm not looking at that on the card and seeing like someone buying jeans. It's just intuitively coming through. And that's where life gets really fun, is when you allow yourself to really pay attention to your surroundings and be so present that you're picking up signs and symbols and synchronicities around you. But then you also realize that you create them. So when those images are moving through your mind or moving through your third eye, and you're seeing this symbol of, I'm seeing a duck cleaning itself in a pond. You might say that in the reading, even though you didn't pull a card that has a duck on it, cleaning itself in a pond, right? So they play off of each other. And that's why I always say, like, tarot has totally helped develop my intuition through learning tarot. And then it's just been this never-ending cycle, because now I look at life kind of like living tarot cards. There's symbols everywhere, and that plays into reading the cards. So it's just like this figure eight, the forever symbol. It's just feeding. It's like a feedback loop continuously. The more that you learn about tarot, the more that you learn about life, they feed into each other. And it's so fun. It's so fun. There's so many times where people will comment on my videos and be like, oh my God, like that is so on point. Like this happened to me today. That happened to me today. I'm wearing a green shirt, and my fiance is wearing a purple shirt, like, cause I mentioned green and purple, right? And then you start to like see it. The more that you become aware of certain things coming into your reality, the more that you create it. So really, there's different things that we can plug in as readers or as someone that's being read, that when we're more aware, we can see that it's kind of all a synchronicity. All of it. All of it. And that's not to take the magic out. It's actually how much magic literally life is. And that's why I love symbology, because it's all one big symbol. Your life is a symbol. Your life is a synchronicity. And the signs that you see have come from you, have come from your higher self and your subconscious mind, from spirit, showing you something, even down to an illness. That's a sign that your body is speaking to you. What is that sign? What is it telling you? What is it telling you? Are you listening? Or are you just not really appreciating what your physical reality is giving you as a message from spirit? Because when you do that, I'm telling you, like, everything becomes more fun. Even getting sick. Like, I know that's not fun, but for me, when I was taken out a couple weeks ago and just physically in so much pain, I had that higher perspective the entire time, even though it was so hard for my human, that this is a huge symbol that's coming into my reality. This is a huge sign right here. And I'm really being called to pay attention, especially because I could not do my regular things physically. Like I had to be in bed. And so I was really called to just pay attention to what this was. I asked my dream. All right, do you guys want to hear the story about my dream? So this is really interesting. Like I said, my brother's dealing with something that's going on in his chest. And it was really interesting. Like I'm telling you, this is a sci-fi movie that we live in. The day that I found out that he was in the hospital, and he's doing great, okay? So, but if you want to send him love, then please do so. His name is Anthony, as I said, with the ant symbol that's been coming through nonstop. Oh, brothers. And speaking of brothers, I have these cats next to me and they're just cleaning each other. So cute. Anyways, the day that I found out he was in the hospital, my body started to hurt in my chest. And it wasn't that my mind was thinking anything in particular consciously, but I noticed that my body, like I was having this pain. It almost felt like indigestion in my chest, this contraction in my chest and in my ribs. And after a couple of days, I was debilitated. I could barely lay down. And this was a whole week that this was going on. But it was so interesting. I knew that there was something here. It wasn't like, go to the hospital, go to urgent care, even though I was at the point where I almost did because it was that painful. I didn't know what was going on, even though I did know energetically. But my ego is getting in the way of survival. And so experiencing this pain from it's like from the second that my sister called me and told me what was happening. It was subtle at first, but then after a couple of days, this pain was so intense. And so I was like, all right, there's something here for me. There's something here, especially because I was literally taken out physically. It wasn't that I was sick, you guys. Like I had this intense pain in my chest, like in my heart, in my upper back, in my rib, mostly on my left side. And it was so intense. I've never had that kind of pain, especially that lasted that long. It was insane. So I knew that it had something to do with my brother because it started right when I heard the news that something was going on with his health, that happened to be in his chest. And so after a few days, I was like, when it started to get really bad, I'm like, I'm going to ask my dream. I'm going to ask my higher self to show me in my dreams why I'm in so much pain right now. Because when you're a human body, it's like your mind knows something. I knew that it was something attached to Anthony. But the pain was so intense. I'm like, I need something. I need something, And there are so many downloads that came through. But with this dream I want to share is majorly symbolic. I was in this, it kind of seemed like a tropical rainforesty. There were a lot of trees. There was a lot of nature. I was there with a few people. It kind of felt like a retreat type of situation. And there was this man leader guy. And all I remember from the dream was collecting, like they were chips, like tortilla chips, but they were really big, kind of like potato or tortilla chips from nature, like pulling them off the trees and just like collecting these chips. And then I had a big cup and I was collecting all of this goo. But it was like, I remember thinking in the dream, like, this seems like vegan, really natural nacho cheese. It was like I was collecting nacho cheese and chips. And so I was collecting it. And it was really interesting because with the cheese, it took me like 2 seconds to fill my whole entire cup. It was really easy to collect. Now, all of these little tiny things are symbols, right? Okay, I'll get into that. So I started to take the chips that I collected and dunking it into the cheese that I collected and just eating it and eating it and eating it and eating it. I was just gobbling it up and I loved it. It was so good. And it just felt so easy to eat a ton of it. And really, I was just like astonished by how great and natural this cheese was. So natural. And so the guide guy was like, all of that is from you, from all of you. Like, it's basically, he was telling us that nacho cheese basically shed off of all of us. Now, it didn't disgust me in my dream or anything, because it just symbolized, in my dream, I didn't necessarily realize it, but when I woke up after I really sat with it, it symbolizes everyone's energy that created this cheese that I was eating. This is a powerful symbol that was coming through. The night that I asked my higher self, please show me why I'm in pain. Because I've been gobbling up everyone else's energy. I've been taking on my family's energy, taking on all of this pain, all of this fear, and just putting it into my heart. It's like holding it in my heart. And the symbols of, it was so easy to collect all of this energy. It was so easy to gobble it down. It felt good to gobble it down. And this has been my program, is it feels good to take on other people's energy and like deal with it for them. I know how to digest things. I know how to, deal with certain issues. So I'm going to take them on. I know. It's like, that's the thing about being like the black sheep or the spiritual one in the family, right? It's like that spiritual ego. That's what was coming through, was I know better how to deal with this thing that's happening in the chest. I know better how to, like, you need to deal with fear. You need to deal with anger. And like, it's like, these are the things that I know, and I understand the energetics of when someone gets really sick or gets something goes on with their health. It all starts energetically. It's just period. It does. That's just how life forms, is energy first. It's all energy first. And so I literally was unconsciously in a pattern taking on everyone else's energy. And so how powerful of a dream was that, right? Where I was literally eating up everyone's energy. And it was so funny because I went and told Dr. Brett Jones, shout out to Dr. Brett Jones. He's my chiropractor in Tucson, Arizona. Love him. He's like an energy healer shaman man as well. And when I told him about this dream, he's like, what do you call cheese that isn't yours? And I was like, nacho cheese. And that's so funny because I'm like, that right there is a symbol. It was nacho cheese. It was not my cheese. It wasn't my cheese to eat. But it just felt so natural to gather it up so easily, to eat it down so easily. It was in nature. It's like in my nature to eat up everyone's energy. So I just found that profound, that was the dream that my higher self gave me when I asked, why am I holding this pain? And so this is also a sign for you to go ahead and ask your dreams to show you. You can ask life to show you. Ask your higher self, ask your guides, show me where this pain, where this pain is coming from. Show me more about this. Show me more about that. And like, get as specific as you can. And just become more conscious and more aware of your surroundings, of your dreams. And it's profound and it's amazing. It's like you're building your own video game. You're building your own simulation, your own dream. Because when you're in a dream, you can change it, right? When you're lucid in a dream, you can be like, I want to fly. Let me fly. We can do the same in our real life. Maybe not necessarily flying, maybe not yet. We're not there yet as humanity. We have too much fear in the consciousness, a little too many constraints right now, but we're breaking free of those limitations. So be one of those people. Be a conscious creator where you're realizing that every symbol and sign and synchronicity that you're seeing, you have created. And just get inquisitive of why you're creating it for yourself. So I hope these stories of my past relationship and my brother, shout out to Joe, shout out to Anthony, so much love for these men, the very important men in my life. And there's so many layers to all of this, and that was just kind of scratching the surface, but I just wanted to share that so you can have really powerful examples of how our life really is a living symbol. It's a living synchronicity. When you really tune in with that, it becomes so magical because you realize that you are the magician, you are the creator. And these are the codes for you today. So I hope you got something out of this episode. Maybe you learned something about yourself, about, you know, how beautiful and incredible it is to really claim to be how powerful it is to claim yourself to be a creator. Words. All right, guys, that is all for today. Thank you for liking, for subscribing, for sharing this episode. I feel like you know someone that could benefit from this episode. So go ahead and share it. And thank you so much for the love and the support on my channeled messages when it comes to my YouTube and my Instagram, my TikTok, all of the places. And I just appreciate your love and support. I'm going to put links below if you're interested in working with me further. And I will see you guys on the next episode of Creator Codes. Bye bye.